Hey everyone! So I've got a card with all kinds of things going on it today. So the first step I did was I took my favorite things. This is the Cloudy Day stencil, and I'm just using 3 different distress ink colors. The mini cubes work perfect for this technique, and I'm just mushing them right onto the stencil. So you definitely want a stencil with more open space like this so that you've got an area to actually apply the ink and let it pool up on it. And I use Broken China, Peacock Feathers, and Salty Ocean. Just mush them all over the stencil, and then I'm just going to spray it with some water, and you can see the color just kind of gets activated and starts to pool up a bit. I did it the very messy way. I couldn't reach my paper towel when I did this, so I didn't use it. But I got my mat out of the way, and then I laid down my watercolor cardstock. This is the Distress watercolor cardstock, and I have the smooth side facing me. And I'm just going to mush the stencil onto the cardstock. And this is where you definitely would want to use paper towel. But I just use my fingers, and you'll see in the video I get covered in ink. And I still have ink like all over my fingers. I totally stained my hands, but that doesn't bother me. It only bugs me when I get adhesive on my hands. It drives me crazy. But the ink doesn't. And it kind of worked because as I was doing it, like the ink was getting on my fingers, so I let it kind of smear a little bit here and there on the clouds. And I don't know, it just worked. But yeah. If you want to try this and you don't want to get ink all over yourself, use some paper towel to kind of press everything in. But once that was done and I peeled off the stencil, you see you get this really cool effect with the different colors, and yeah, it's really fun. So let that sit aside to dry, and then I grabbed my Art Impressions. This is the Hoots stamp that I got a few months ago with the intention to make this birthday card. So I pulled that out and I'm inking it up with my Hero Arts black ink and then stamping it onto another piece of Distress watercolor cardstock, again stamping onto the smooth side. It didn't matter where I stamped it because I'm going to cut this out when I'm done. And then I grabbed just an acrylic block and I put it on a piece of white paper just so I could see the color better. And I'm just mushing more of the Distress inks onto the block. I'm going to use that as my palette. You could definitely use Distress markers for this or other brands of ink. I just thought it's high time I started using these little Distress inks that I got. And since I already had them out to do the background, I thought I will do this entire card with Distress inks. So I used Antique Linen, Vintage Photo, and Gathered Twigs here. And I'm just picking them up with a wet watercolor brush. So I started with my lightest, which was that Antique Linen, and just colored the little body of the owl, and then made sure to dry it so that things aren't smearing and bleeding into each other. So I mixed the two, the Antique Linen and the Vintage Photo, just kind of mixed them together, and used that for the body of the little guy. And then I added a little bit of the Gathered Twigs there, just kind of picking it up to add in the darker areas. Again, I'm not being super particular. 1, because it's watercolor, so you can be a little bit freer with it. And 2, I'm not worrying about any of it going outside the edges or anything, because like I said, I'm going to trim this out. And I super sped this up too. It's like at 800%. I wish I could color this fast. I get emails every once in a while from people who are like, I wish I could color as fast as you. You know, I wish I could color as fast as this. So yeah, it's just super sped up because otherwise the video would drag on forever. And yeah, it's just applying color, picking it up with a white paintbrush, or wet paintbrush, not a white paintbrush, a wet paintbrush, and then just applying the color and then drawing it in between so that you don't get the colors all smearing. So once I was done with the little owl dude, he was so easy to color. I'm grabbing these balloon stamps from, it's the Simon Says Stamps birthday balloon set. And I'm inking up just the edge of the balloon, like just pressing the ink pad kind of on an angle just around the edge, just so I've got the outline there. And the pink one, I kind of made a mess of it, but I wasn't worried about it because I'm going to really, really darken this balloon so you're not going to see the little bit of mess. I just wanted the outline though. I didn't want to completely stamp it solid because the ink soaks into the watercolor paper too deeply and you can't move it around as much. So using the outline and then picking up the color from my little acrylic block there, you can see I can get a much smoother result and an actual more watercolored look. So I darkened it quite a bit, and then I did the exact same thing again, this time using that Seedless Preserves ink. So in this one, stamped like perfectly, just the outline of the balloon there. And again, just picking up the Seedless Preserves ink with my wet paintbrush. And oh, I really like this color. It's such a pretty purple. So applying it more on the left side, because that's kind of the darker area, and then pulling the color over to the right side where I wanted it to be a little bit lighter. and then just doing that again to deepen it even more. And then I did the same thing with the smallest one, the small balloon from the set. I just inked it up with the Mowed Lawn, and then applying the color again with my paintbrush. So really fun. I could have left it just like this, but I wanted it to go more with the image, and since it was a line image, I decided to just grab, I've got a fine-tipped Sharpie marker here in my stash, so I just went around the edges of the balloons to make it look more like a stamped outline. Of course, it's not going to be perfect, especially I don't have very steady hands when it comes to drawing like straight lines, but it doesn't matter, and especially with the art impression stamps, they're kind of more sketchy looking anyway. That's kind of the appeal of them. So I just kind of went along, added a couple tiny little squiggles just to make it kind of match more, but not being particularly careful about it, just as long as, you know, it's not a huge squiggle outside the lines. And once that's done, I'm going to fussy cut all of these out, which just means cutting right along the lines. And I turned my camera off for this part because otherwise it's just impossible to try and like maneuver my hands and scissors under in the camera angle. Ugh, I just didn't bother. So once they were all cut out, I just used my distress marker, the black soot distress marker. Since everything's dry now, if you're wanting to like add more watercolor or any more water, you would not use this to edge everything because it would reactivate. But now that it's all going to stay dry, I just use the very edge of the marker. You can see I'm holding it against the edge of the cardstock here, and it just covers up all that white left from cutting it out, and it just finishes it, especially if you don't cut them out completely perfect and there's little bits of white here and there peeking out around any fussy cut image. By edging it with a black marker, it just finishes it off and makes it look a lot better. It makes a big difference. So I've been showing this in videos for a long time now. So when I do fussy cut images instead of die cutting them, I really like to edge it with the marker. So I trimmed off that cloud piece. I just trimmed 1/8 of an inch off every side of it. So just to trim it down a bit so that when I apply it to my card, it's going to have a bit of a border. And then I realized with my black hemp cord that I've got, this is just some American Crafts hemp, it's actually 3 strands wrapped together. So I roughed it up a bit so that I could separate those 3 strands. Because the black thread I had was way too thin. Like it was just your standard like sewing thread, and it just looked kind of silly. So by separating that hemp, it was perfect for this. So I had the 3 little strands, and I just tied them around the balloons and then left the ends hanging for now. And then I'm going to attach these guys with some foam tape. Kind of had like a mental layout going on here and there with how I wanted this card to end up. So got the balloons in place, and then for my little owl dude, I just took my craft knife and went along just that little bit of the bottom edge of his wing here. I had to use a fair bit of pressure because again it's like a heavyweight watercolor cardstock, so I did a kind of a thin cut first once just to get the line going, and then used a lot more pressure to get it completely cut through there. And then more foam tape. Cut it really thin. I was quite generous with the foam tape. I wanted to make sure this whole piece was really supported since there's like the little branches sticking out in that. And peeled off the backings to all of that, and then I'm going to slip the cords there, the threads, kind of under that little cut part of his wing before I adhere him into place. So it just makes it look like he's holding the little balloons. And I originally was only going to do 1 balloon because this is actually Caitlin's birthday card. So I've been mentally planning this card for way too long now. It's just ridiculous. So I was going to do like 1 balloon, and it's all going to be about turning 1, and then I thought, oh, I don't need to overdo it. We all know how old she is. So I decided to go with 3 balloons because I thought they were cuter anyway. And yeah, knotted the little strings up so it looks like he's just holding all 3 of those little balloons there. And then I'm going to apply a good amount of adhesive to the back of this, and then adhere it to my white card base, which is standard A2 size. So 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And yeah, if you guys can hear her chattering away, she's in here with me as always. And then for the inside of the card, I'm using the happy birthday sentiment from that Simon Says Stamp birthday balloon set, which this sentiment is like one of the main reasons why I got this set. I love this handwritten font. It's so nice. So ink that up with the Hero Arts black ink as well and stamped it. And then there's just those little stars in the set. So I thought just to finish it off, I'd stamp them with the same colors of distress inks I used on the front. And that's all there was to it. So I have a whole bunch of birthday party planning to do for this bug. I can't believe she's going to be a year old in a couple days. That is insane. So thank you guys so much for watching. As always, there will be a link below to my blog post with links to all the supplies used. Thumbs up this video if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!